One of my favorite quotes that I feel like I've kind of led my life by for many years is a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step.
Yeah.
And I feel like that has just really inspired me to take it one step at a time and not really necessarily get overwhelmed by just the huge number of possibilities, and taking it bit by bit, seeing what feels right to me in the moment.
Ava Della Pietra, welcome to Making It.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's my pleasure. It's so great to meet you. And this is a great day to be doing this interview because this is the day that your new single and video drop.
Yes, it's a super exciting day. At midnight, my single for Life dropped, and then the music video dropped at 1 p.m. So it's been a very eventful day.
Plus, life goes on as well. You were in school today.
Right, absolutely. Yeah.
Which is great. We'll be talking about the balancing of being a recording artist, putting singles out, and also being in college at the same time, which I love that you're doing all of that. I think it's
Thank you.
Wonderful. It intrigues me. And I applaud you for it.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It definitely is like a lot to juggle,
Yeah.
but I love everything I'm doing, so it's all worth it.
Good. Well, I want to start the show with two quotes. One of them is from a magazine article, Stage Magazine, and it says, Della Pietra is a pop star who refuses to play it safe. I also have a quote of yours, which is, success comes from taking risks, staying focused, and believing that your goals are possible. I think those marry really well together, those two quotes. Can you elaborate on what they said and what you say about yourself?
Sure. I think in terms of taking risks, I think that a lot of things that I like to do in my music is kind of explore a lot of different genres. I feel like all my songs do end up blending together in the end, but I do like kind of exploring different possibilities in my music and incorporating styles that I'm really into at the moment, because it just makes the whole process a lot more fun. I also feel like some of my songs are a bit bipolar in the sense that some of them are more nonchalant and more calm, whereas some of them are very dramatic, and I've called it my alter ego at moments. So it's really fun to explore both sides of myself through that.
I love that you're open to it. You know, I think it makes for more interesting songwriting as well. And also, you know, weaving the truth with a little bit of fiction or embellishing perhaps the truth, so that, I guess this is a question I have for you as a fellow songwriter. Do you limit yourself by the truth when you're writing?
At some point, I went through a phase where I felt like I wanted to be super honest through my music, and I was trying to have everything be almost 100% factual, perhaps a bit dramatized. But I think I am exploring a lot more now, kind of delving into, like you said, mixing more my imagination and just the art of songwriting as opposed to just sticking with the facts. So I think something that's really fun about songwriting for me is that I write definitely from my own personal experiences or from my own thoughts, but then, like I said, I end up dramatizing it, so it gets a bit blown out of proportion almost, which is really fun because it allows me to feel my emotions to the fullest extent, which also allows me to process it, I think, in a really interesting way.
I agree. And, you know, and I think there's a really beautiful fine line that you can have a foot in each world between truth and authenticity in your storytelling. Right. And, you know, the freedom to not be restricted to the actual facts of the story. I think as long as you're authentic and your music feels authentic to me, that it's coming from a truthful place, even when it's playful or intense or bipolar, like you said, not a word I would have thought of, but you know, I get it, you know, because it's more than one thing, you know, it's more than one polarity.
Yeah, I actually didn't come up with the reference to
Somebody else
bipolar
did?
myself. No, this was actually a comment that I got on one of my songs, just through social media. Somebody was like, "Wow, this girl is like so bipolar with the stuff that she releases."
Okay,
Because
so
I think,
would that have been
yeah,
sick or ego? I'm taking a guess.
I think the back to back was releasing "Moon Over Capri," which was a song very dear to my heart, and it was about my grandpa, who passed away earlier this year, and kind of um, honoring him. He was from Italy. So it was like this very emotional ballad where I was like really pouring my heart out. And then right after, I released this song called Two Can Play, which was kind of this fantasized revenge against a friend, or in my case, a guy who wasn't super, I guess, honest. So I think like that back to back, people were like, "Oh wow, what a drastic jump!" But I kind of love that because I feel like I'm always keeping people on their toes.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing the story about Moon Over Capri. I was actually intrigued by that song and wanted to know a little bit about it. Later in our conversation, if you like, we can delve into some of the lyric of that as well.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Let's talk about your background.
Sure.
You were born in New York and began performing at 4 years old, writing songs at 5. I imagine that they were very emotional songs and maybe not incredibly well crafted yet, or possibly so, but I would imagine they had a lot of heart. At age 7, you went on to perform with National Tour of Les Mis and also White Christmas, and then you joined the original Broadway cast. Say it again for the people in the back of the room: the original Broadway cast of School of Rock. So your Broadway debut at the age of 10, that's a pretty young age for having that kind of exposure, that kind of experience. And so I'm wondering in what ways that your early theater experience shaped you, and also how it shaped your approach to your pop music career.
Yeah, absolutely. My theater experience in School of Rock was just so much fun. I think something really unique about School of Rock specifically was that the way the casting process worked is they got a lot of people who, or a lot of kids who weren't necessarily super experienced with acting or singing or dancing, which is kind of your traditional requirement to be on Broadway, but they were also musicians. So it kind of created this really unique cast where I was constantly learning from other people about songwriting and I guess different ways to express yourself outside of musical theater as well. So through School of Rock, I learned how to play the electric bass. I was introduced to like this really fun idea of being in a band. So I think that show specifically really inspired me to kind of start taking songwriting a bit more seriously. And I recorded my first song when I was 10, just like a month or something after the show opened. And
Which song was that?
I think that one was not released because that one I wrote when I was 10.
Okay.
But yeah.
Maybe you'll share that with me on the side just for personal listening.
Oh yeah. It's like I don't know, it's just about being, I guess, inspired is what the song's about.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
it's really fun. I mean, there are things that I haven't released as well, but I think it's for artists to share things with other artists from where they began is interesting. You know, it's definitely revealing, but it's kind of fun as well. But moving on.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I think the reference to me writing a song when I was 5 years old or something, I wrote this song about being super excited to go into kindergarten. So I think that's probably what that was referencing. And I was just kind of improvising this extremely dramatized, almost theatrical piece. At some point, it like changes from major to minor about how excited I am so different inspirations as I grow up. But
were you already playing violin then, or a little bit of piano, or how were you writing major to minor chords? What was your medium?
Oh, I think I just kind of changed major to minor when I was singing, because I was improvising this song for my mom. My mom was very supportive. She's always like taking videos of me singing these songs that I was coming up with. But like I said, so I started to take it more seriously when I was in School of Rock. And then after I ended up leaving that show, I transitioned to being a singer-songwriter. And I think a lot of my songs do have this kind of theatrical aspect to them. Especially, I really like to, I don't know, I guess I really value storytelling in songwriting, and kind of allowing the song to have this arc where the narrator or I have kind of something that they learn at the end of the song. So I think that's kind of how maybe theater and theatrical music has inspired my work.
So thanks for answering that with so much clarity. I'm really
Oh yeah.
well. I'm starting to get a feel for who you are as a person. Yeah, because I already know you as a songwriter. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
from having listened to your songs before we met. So it's always fun to get to know who's behind the story, too. And one of the things you just mentioned it briefly in a lot of what you just said, which is
Mm-hmm.
from the School of Rock experience, you were around professionals and you learned a very important lesson from them and about the theater business, which is that it takes patience to be an actor.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I read in your press kit. Can you tell me more about what that lesson was? Was there a particular thing that happened, or was it just being mentored by all these wonderful other actors who were, I would imagine, being supportive of the kids in the show?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the role that I was specifically playing in School of Rock was a swing. So I was an understudy for 6 of the characters in School of Rock, and that definitely took a lot of, I guess, focus and patience to kind of be able to keep track of all these different roles.
Right.
And I'd have situations where I'd kind of be thrown into the show a few minutes before the show started or in the middle of the show. So it was very exciting and a really, really unique and valuable experience for me to kind of learn how to think on my feet, I guess.
How does that happen in the middle of a show? I never really thought about, I know somebody, their voice is weak, they sprain their ankle, in rehearsal or in their warm up. What happens midway? I mean, how do you make a shift like that so quickly?
Well, you're exactly right. The girl sprained her ankle. So she was injured and she thought that she would be able to do the show. But then after the first big dance number, she realized, look, I actually can't do the rest of the show. So they made an announcement over the loudspeaker backstage that I was going to be going on. So hair, makeup, and costumes and everything came rushing towards me and started putting me into costume to go on stage.
Were you already in another costume ready to go, or you're just on standby in your jeans and t-shirt, staying vocally warm and hydrated? And
exactly. I was just backstage, likely playing cards or some type of game. Yeah,
because you're 10.
Right. Exactly.
That's pretty funny. Yeah, I never really gave much thought to what the swing does when they're not on stage. Except I running your thousands of lines, from the 5 different parts. But once you locked it in, did you have to stay on top of it, or did once you locked it in, you were kind of good to go and you're 10 and just ready and willing?
I guess I was definitely always kind of reviewing the cards. Just I made these little note cards for myself that I also had backstage with me every time I went on, because it's just a lot of blocking and moving around you have to keep track of. But being a swing was definitely chaotic in the best way possible. I really loved it. It was funny. I think one time it was such a rush to get me on stage that somehow I missed somebody telling me what role I was going on for. So I was on stage looking around to see who was absent to kind of do
who am I?
cross elimination. It's who am I today? So yeah, it was so much fun. I loved it.
Yeah, live theater, nothing like it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned also that you learned to play electric bass and a few other instruments, in preparation for the show. Did you play any instruments before that? And how did you learn? Were you getting formal lessons? Were friends teaching you? Were the people in the pit, available to you to work with you?
I played a couple of instruments before. I played violin and piano, and I guess just the tiniest bit of ukulele, but like barely. I play more ukulele now.
Mhm.
But a couple of days before my callback for, or I guess when I got a callback for School of Rock, they asked me if I knew how to play the electric bass, and I was like, no, but I can learn. So in 4 days or 3 or 4 days, I learned how to play Teacher's Pet, which is the big
Mhm.
song in School of Rock, also in the movie if you've seen it. So yeah, I learned how to play that, and I was just, my mom got in touch with some electric bass teacher that was nearby, and I was just practicing with him for the entire day, the next 3 days, and I guess it worked out.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, it's also great that you were honest but enthusiastic in your honesty. Yeah, you knew you could
Yeah.
do it, and I think it's so important to tell people that. I've said
Mhm.
yes to things. I said yes to playing mandolin with Weird Al Yankovic on national TV on a Friday, because I knew I could learn how to do it by Monday,
Oh my goodness.
starting with borrowing a mandolin because I didn't even own
Yeah.
one, and then getting a quick lesson on the chords. It was a 3-chord song, so I knew it was within my capability because I'm a professional guitarist. But there's a fine line. There are a few times where I've done what you've done, which is cool to hear you say that. It's like, well, I don't, but I know I could learn how quickly.
Mhm.
Yeah. And there's been 1 or 2 times in my career where some voice from within me said out loud, yes, I can. And I remember like the first time, it might have happened twice. And I think I literally spun around to see who said that. And it was me. And I couldn't believe it was coming out of my mouth in an audition, but I got the job. And then I figured out very quickly how to do it. So that's a little dangerous. I don't know that I would recommend that. And I would imagine you as a Broadway actress would definitely not recommend that, but it didn't fail me.
you, you know all about this. Like,
Well,
you relate so hard.
I do.
Life
I
of an
mean,
artist.
well, I love acting in Broadway and have a lot of friends who are professional actors, and I've
Mhm.
always been enamored, by theater, and of course,
Mhm.
and I had a great drama teacher in high school, Ellen Davis, and with no intention of becoming a professional actor, but it was invaluable for me to be taking drama classes and be in plays, and along with everything else that I did in school, and even taking improv classes, when I moved to LA, because I was working with Gary Austin, who founded the Groundling Theaters, the Groundling Theater, where a lot of people came out of, who ended up on Saturday Night Live and and became big stars. But he, he was also a country songwriter, and he loved doing that. And so I was working with him as a producer and guitar player. But he said to me, "You need to take my improv class." And I said, "Why?" He goes, "Because you're too stiff. You gotta loosen up, and it would be great for you. It would be really great." And I'm so grateful for that experience. So I have so much respect for actors. I think that's why I relate so hard, as you said, to what you're talking about. Let's talk about inspiration. There's another quote of yours, because I've been delving into your press kit and various other things as I've been listening to your songs and kind of going down the Ava rabbit hole, which has been really fun for me, by the way.
Yes.
But you say inspiration comes from living a little outside the norm. I'm wondering what inspires you.
The thing that inspires me is definitely new experiences. I find that when I'm back at school, I tend to actually have a lot more inspiration than I might when I'm just kind of doing, or I don't know. I guess my summers are definitely very active, but perhaps they live more in the norm of what I'm accustomed to in terms of like being with my family and like writing songs and everything like that. But when I get at school, when I get back to school, I have all these new experiences, I guess, just because it's college and everything. So when I have these new experiences, I kind of have more inspiration and different ideas about what I want to write about. So I guess that's what I mean by living outside the norm. Kind of, if I feel like I have writer's block or anything, I'm like, let me go out and try to have an experience that I've never had before.
For example, like going out with friends or having dinner or cooking a meal or taking a walk in the park.
Right. Exactly. Like,
Like it can be
yeah, it
anything,
could be
right?
anything.
Yeah. You just want to
Right.
shift your point of view.
Right. And specifically like meeting new people. I
Yeah.
feel like maybe that's more probably the reason that I have a lot of inspiration when I get to school, because I get to meet a lot of different people with a lot of different backgrounds. I end up crushing on some of them, which makes for very fun songs.
Yeah.
But then also I get to hear their experiences and draw inspiration from that as well. Just tying into what we talked about
Yeah.
bringing in not just my own experiences, but also things from my imagination or things that I observe.
I imagine the diversity of the kind of people that you were meeting is extreme because
Mm-hmm.
we haven't talked about this yet, but we'll say it now. You're doing a double major at two universities, at Berklee College of Music, where I went to school, and
Mm-hmm.
at Harvard. And, you know, there, one you're studying music, the other you're studying medicine. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's fantastic. But that's not always, but it's sometimes a very different type of person. I know a lot of doctors who are great musicians. You know, I've got a few friends who could have been a professional musician, you know, but they decided to do it just for the joy and
Right.
practice medicine because it was more lucrative, perhaps,
Mm-hmm.
an easier shot, you know, towards success, whatever that might be. Um, but it also, again, it's kept music really pure for them, but they're really talented. But you must be with a lot of medical nerds and or brilliant people who are not
Right.
artistic, perhaps.
Would
Uh,
save. Would save.
well, you know, I mean, nerd in the fondest of terms, you know, because I mean, look, I'm impressed with anybody who goes to Harvard to study anything. You know, it's a great school, and likewise Berkeley. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so you're doing both. So I'm double impressed with you for
Oh, thank you.
yeah, for knowing that you want to do that, and why don't we just get into that conversation for a moment right now? I was going to wait on that, but how did you make that decision to do a double major?
Well, I guess I at some point had to decide what college I wanted to go to, and Harvard obviously came up. And while I was applying to Harvard, actually a day or something before I submitted my application, I found out about this joint studies program between Harvard and Berklee College of Music. And I was like, wow, that's kind of perfect.
Yeah.
So literally a day before the deadline, I found out about this, and I ended up putting in my application for the joint studies program because I was thinking, how great would it be to just take my two interests and literally combine them and study both. So that was kind of where that decision came from. And like you said, it has been really amazing because I've met just so many different people. Another really amazing thing, I guess, at Harvard, there are just so many international students. And it's been really, really incredible to meet them. Actually, my best friends are international students,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like very, very, I don't know, it's very comforting to kind of meet them and meet people who are literally from across the world, and still have this really strong connection with them. And I just find myself relating to them on a very deep level. And it's just kind of shows that everyone's kind of the same, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of the things I love about traveling as well. You know,
Yeah.
which is, I think it's so important to just get out of our little tunnel vision of where we live and who we think we are and
Mm-hmm.
travel to Italy, perhaps to Capri to, you know, to experience your, you know, that side of your family, or to know the history of your family that way. But just getting to be in other countries and hear different sounds, you know, sounds of the street and music, but also the rhythm of just the street, the people, you know, and different flavors and scents and everything and different religions and points of view,
Mhm.
it's the best. It's really, you know, I mean, you can sort of get that in a book, but you have to really just smell it and taste it and feel it on your skin, you know, to really take it in. And I think every time I go to any other city or country, I'm enamored with whatever is there, you know, beautiful or tragic, whatever it might be, you know, to get a sense of history. And then again, to go to Europe, you know, I mean, you know, we grew up in the United States. So, you know, St. Augustine, Florida is the oldest, you know, city that we have. And that's just a blink of an eye compared to when you go to Rome or Greece and look at the dates carved in the marble of, you know, when a wall was built or a cobblestone, path. It's amazing. It really, it changes me. Have you had much chance to travel internationally?
This summer, I definitely traveled internationally. I was going to say at the beginning of the summer in May, I went to Italy for my grandpa's celebration of life, and I almost got to live the experience of what I had just written about in Moon Over Capri. He's not actually from. The secret is he's not actually from Capri. He's from a place called Maiori, which is on the Amalfi Coast. So my whole family went to the Amalfi Coast, and we got to meet with all of our cousins, which was really, really magical. It's kind of surreal to take this long flight and then see a lot of people who you're related to. And they're also like the kindest, sweetest people on the planet. So it was a really magical experience. And then after that, at the end of the summer, my family went to Scotland at the Fringe Festival. If you're familiar with that,
I've never been, but yes,
it's so fun. It was our first time, and they put on like 4,000 shows in a month. It's insane, and a lot of variety too. So it was so much fun.
That sounds fantastic. So that's a great example of balancing truth with authenticity, as we were talking about in as a song.
Right.
So. Was it named Capri because it's harder to rhyme something with Amalfi? I mean, was it a writing choice? How did you end up naming the song Capri or Moon Over Capri?
It was a writing choice. I guess I might have called it like Moon Over Maiori, but maybe Maiori is not necessarily as well known, and it's also 3 syllables instead of 2.
Yeah.
So it definitely was a writing choice. But while I was there, we were passing by Capri all the time. So I don't know. I was still staring at the moon over Capri. So I picked the closest thing.
Same moon.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. There you
go. From a mile away to different place on the map.
Right. Exactly.
That's so great. And by the way, as a listener, I really enjoyed the song. I didn't feel like it wasn't completely you, whatever it was you were saying in the song. It's like you got the point across. It didn't matter to me it doesn't matter to me now. I had no idea that's not the moon, that's not where you were standing when you were looking at the moon. It really doesn't matter at the end of the day if your heart's in the right place as a writer. I mean, that's part of what I love about masterful songwriting and masterful songwriters. So it seems like you have a great intuition, for being fearless about that, making a change to serve the story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you so much. Moon Over Capri, I guess besides the location, the rest of it is like super authentic. And it was the first ballad that I had really released. So it was definitely kind of venturing outside of what my normal discography looks like.
Right.
So I was really, really happy with how that song turned out.
I want to talk about a lot of things, but why don't we talk about the new single and video that was released today? The song's called Single for Life. And I was going to read what it says in your press kit, but you can tell me, I don't need to speak for you. You're the one who came up with that. What's the song about?
So Single for Life is about that moment when your best friend ends up finding, I guess, a significant other, and it's not really just the two of you anymore, even though you both swore that you would be single for life. And it's like a love letter to female friendship, and it has some humor. It's a little bit tongue-in-cheek at moments, and it's, I guess, blending humor with a little bit of heartbreak.
And from watching the video, because I heard the song first and then got a chance to see the video, it's very playful and you know, it's really fun. It's a fun song. But I know what you mean about it being a love letter to your girlfriends, you know, to your sisters, you know, that your ride or die girls that are in your life. And I like that about, I can feel it in the video that you all actually really had fun making it. I'm sure it was hard work like anything is, but that there was some genuine fun and love and laughter, you know, from doing it.
Yeah, I mean, it was super fun to film. There was just such a variety of shots. I mean, at some point I'm in this club, like, with these super fun lights and it's very colorful. And we're just kind of dancing around. And then at some point I'm on a rooftop, and at some point I'm having a slumber party with my friends. So it was so fun just based on the variety alone. And it was really fun to meet all the dancers and kind of vibe with them and be like, let's be besties, even though we literally just met. So, yeah.
I could feel the connection, not just with girls at the slumber party that you had, but with you and the dancers. It looked like it was a lovely connection, that everybody was enjoying the choreography and being there to play in the creative sandpit with you with your new song. Let's take a look at it and share it with the audience. We're going to take a look at your new single, Single for Life. Here's the video. We're going to take a short look.
Your wishes all came true. What do you mean? No, I'm alright. I'm just cheering on for you. I smile and laugh as you describe each little detail of his life, and I pretend you haven't said it all before. And as your friend, I'm never sad about something that I don't have, so I was fine till he was knocking at your door. I miss the nights we talk about guys and how we're gonna both be single for life. And he's standing there with his curly hair. So blah, 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 I'll be happy for you, but why do you have to be so goddamn cute? Thinking about that time we yelled from the rooftops how we'll both be single for la, 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 life. We'll both be single for la, 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 life.
Congratulations. What a fun song and a really cool video.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy that it's out and that everyone can see it now.
Yeah. What inspired you to write Single for Life? And is there a particular lyric that stands out as a favorite for you? I've got a couple, but I want to hear you first.
Right. So Single for Life, as you probably got from the video, was inspired by one of my friends who we always kind of had this running joke how we'd be single for life, and we never like meant it literally. I guess even the hook of the song is a little bit ironic and humorous. Us saying that was always just kind of like a metaphor, I guess, for feeling this pressure to find a partner. And I guess with this song, I kind of wanted to laugh a bit at that obsession that we all sometimes have with relationships, and while also kind of reminding people that friendships and independence also deserve a lot of love. But kind of adding on to that unseriousness of the single for life idea, like one of my favorite lines is blah, 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 I'll be happy for you. But why do you have to be so goddamn cute? Because I'm kind of poking fun at myself. So yeah, I think blending like humor and honesty was kind of something I always really valued with this song.
That was a standout lyric for me as well.
Yeah. I think that was like the
Goddamn.
first line that I wrote. That was like the first thing I came up with when I was writing the song. I was like, I want to say blah, 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 because I totally don't care, but I do care.
Right. Also, your very first line, the opening line, 9 days ago, you met someone.
hmm
That's a really well-crafted opener because it brings me as a listener into the story. Like I'm already 2 or 3 sentences into whatever's going on. And that kind of writing intrigues me. You know, I've had some of my stage actor friends have told me that, you know, when they walk onto the stage, you know, when they're doing a Broadway show, even if they don't have a line yet, they already have a backstory before they've moved in front of the audience. Like they are 2 or 3 lines into what you're just saying. And, you know, I never really thought about that, but it was really enlightening to me, to have a glimpse of the process, you know, the creative process of a stage actor or a film actor, you know, the same thing. You don't just kind of walk in and nothing happens till you hit your line. You might not have a line. You know, you're standing there reacting. It could be the most powerful thing. You know, that's on the page, is where you're standing and how you're feeling about what's being said. So, but that kind of line, like I just kind of chuckled when I heard the song, and then when I saw it on the lyric sheet, when I was looking at your lyrics, I went, "That's so cool," because now I want to know what you're going to say right after that.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for saying that. It's funny because I guess what you're saying really ties into what I was saying before about how I think one of the impacts of doing theater at the beginning of my artistic career was, I guess, wanting my songs to have kind of an arc and really like tell a story. So that first line especially, I kind of debated what the length of days or if it should be weeks you met someone. I like went a little bit back and forth. But that first line was actually basically 100% accurate. When I wrote the song, it was literally 9 days ago that my friend had met somebody. And the thing that inspired it was the guy literally knocking on the door, and he was right there. And I was like, oh God, he's so cute. And I thought about like whether people would think it's weird that it was only 9 days. I was like, should it be 2 weeks? So I went a little back and forth, but then I ended up going with honesty instead of, I guess, some other imagination or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Another line that I really enjoyed was, we binged all the rom-com shows predicting how he would propose, both knowing how it ends before it has begun. That third line really says a lot. You know, I'm curious, I was going to ask this anyway when you were just talking about, you know, the making of the song and the love letter to your friends and, you know, to your other women friends, you know, young women friends. What are you noticing as a 20-year-old in school around people your own age? Like, are you seeing that a lot of your friends, men and women, are really like feeling already that they need to find somebody? Is that, or are people pretty okay with, I'm in college right now and I'm focusing on my education or having some fun, just experiencing life? You know, what do you see more of right now in your generation?
I think it definitely depends on the person, and I don't necessarily want to speak for the generation, but I'm totally
what you observe.
No, I'm totally
You're not
kidding.
a spokesperson for all people under 30.
Yeah, but I think like for my friend group, I definitely think that there is like a lot of conversation about relationships, just because we are 20, and it's kind of something that's always a thought in the back of our heads. Also, we're surrounded by a bunch of other 20-year-olds, and whether it's biological or a societal pressure, whatever it is, I think that there definitely is kind of this pressure that maybe people either put on themselves, or they feel it like all around them just by observing other couples, to kind of get into a relationship. So what I wanted to do through this song is kind of again, emphasize the importance of having that female friendship while also kind of commenting and being like, well, it is like a little annoying that you have a boyfriend now,
Right.
but I did really value our friendship. And
Yeah.
it's also fun to be single, and it's fun to have that independence.
Yeah.
And like you said, kind of focus on school and growing and
Experiencing life.
just discovering more about yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, just self-discovery. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, for me, when I was in college at Berkeley,
Yeah.
I really didn't have a whole lot of time to do anything but exercise, try to eat healthy, and stay awake in class because I was so exhausted from all the schoolwork and the practicing and the gigging at night and, you know, all that stuff. So, well, thanks for sharing your perspective of that. I was just kind of curious because, you know, the song talks about it, but it's informed by what you're experiencing in your own life, but also what you're seeing, you know, what you're surrounded by, your peers.
Yeah, I also think I was talking about this with a friend recently. I also feel like love and relationships and stuff is just super represented in everywhere. Like it's everywhere we go, I feel like.
Yeah.
Like every movie has a love story, every TV show, every book. So it's also just something, like I said, that's always in the back of our minds.
Absolutely. Let's talk about your career right now, which is interesting to be having a conversation about your career while you're in college right now. But you had a career before you went to college. You're not stopping your career. You are managing to do your best to balance three things, you know, pursuing a medical degree, you know, a music degree, and to continue to be a songwriter and actor and all of the other creative things that you do. So at 20 years old now, that's how old you are, correct?
Yes.
You've already released 21 singles. You've written over 150 original songs and independently built a fan base with over 27 million global streams and over 1.5 million followers. Wow. It's very impressive. And it's something to be proud of, you know, because the saying goes, it takes a village, right? So, and that comes to mind when I hear about your accomplishments. Of course, it begins with your talent and hard work and perseverance. But I want to start with your family. How have they encouraged and supported your creative journey, or have they not at points?
My family has always been just extremely supportive in whatever I want to do. I think I don't know, I guess my interests definitely make sense based on my family's interests. I feel like my family is kind of a mix between having this interest in, you know, science and medicine. You know, my mom was a pediatrician at some point, and my dad is like into physics and math, but then my mom also has this very musical side to her, where she was also doing music and film and stuff when she was younger. And I guess she very much inspired me in terms of my musical side. So like I said, my family is kind of a mix of science, math people and music people. So you can, and it's interesting because our friends also, when we have these like gatherings or parties, you can literally see those two groups kind of gravitating towards each other. And kind of like what you were saying before about how you know doctors, I guess, who have an interest in music or vice versa. I think that there is kind of this inherent connection between the two, and people just kind of have a respect for each other's works, especially in those two disciplines.
Yeah. Or the NASA JPL scientist who I told you about, Dr. Linda Spilker, when we met the other day, who basically was explaining to me how what she does as a scientist for space travel, like being the co-chair of over 300 international scientists. And she's telling me when we had her on the show that what we do, you and I as artists, is the same as what she does as a scientist. The same.
Right.
And I said, how? Yeah. She said, well, it's like when you write a song or write an arrangement, or you like have an idea of something, you sort of can see it, and then you figure it out as you go. You make it up as you go, and you surround yourself with great people and then adjust. And she goes, it's exactly the same. And so that makes sense. Like when you're at a gathering with your family and there are friends from all those worlds, it all blends beautifully together. So that makes a lot of sense. So here's another quote of yours. Surround yourself. Is this odd for you to hear me reading quotes about yourself? Things
Maybe no, I love it.
Here is what I read from, again, your press kit. Anybody can find it if they go to your website, and we'll give all that information out. As a matter of fact, tell everybody where they can find you right now.
You can find me everywhere. You can find me at my website, avadellapietra.com. You can find me on Instagram at Ava Della Pietra. I also have TikTok and Facebook and all the works. I have a YouTube channel.
Great.
Check me out.
Everybody go check her out.
Yeah.
In your words, surround yourself with people who genuinely make you feel good. We could stop right there, and I'm 100% with you on that. Familiarity doesn't outweigh kindness, respect, or positive energy. There are so many amazing people out there, and everyone deserves to spend time with those who truly support and uplift them. I totally agree. Here's my question for you. How did you build your team outside of your family and friends? Because you have a team. You have a publicist, you have obviously choreographers and videographers and producers.
I guess it was just kind of about meeting different people through the people who are already on my team and kind of reaching out that way. Also, I guess if we're also talking about like producers and stuff like that, early on, I just kind of emailed producers that I liked to various songs and gave it my best shot. I think a lot of it is kind of, like we were saying before, kind of taking that risk and putting yourself out there. And yeah, the team that I have now, obviously, are extremely supportive, and they make me feel very comfortable with my music, and I feel very, I guess, in control of my vision for what I want to put out there. And that's really empowering, and I really enjoy that.
And more or less, what were the percentage of people who responded to your heartfelt and bold emails?
For the producers?
Yeah.
I'm not even sure. Early on, I guess the percentage grew over time as I got more experience with songwriting, because at first it was me just kind of saying, I have this theatrical background, but most recently I'm interested in songwriting. Would you like to possibly produce one of my songs? But now it's, I guess, done more so through my managers and stuff. So I don't know what the percentage is at this point, but early on, who knows? It was probably pretty small when I was 11 or 12, and then it grew over time.
But how wonderful that you did that. I think it's great. I think it's great. I absolutely respect and appreciate anytime somebody reaches out to me respectfully who I don't know to ask that kind of a question about me producing them or being on the show or whatever, or just even for mentoring for a moment, asking a couple of questions. So I always try to make time to do that, even if it's like, I can give you 20 minutes, write down those questions. So I think it's great that you did that. Some of the collaborators include chart-topping producers like Jon Levine with Dua Lipa, Will Hicks from Ed Sheeran's music, Shane Stevens, who's worked with Ariana Grande, and Nash Overstreet, who's worked with Meghan Trainor and Taylor Swift. I'm wondering, with any or each of those people, what were the most memorable part of working with each of these hit makers? What did you take away, not just musically, but personally?
Working with producers definitely teaches me a lot about collaboration and being able to create this open environment where I can feel comfortable, kind of, I guess, changing directions on songs and seeing what fits the best. I also think it just in general was a lot of practice in terms of figuring out the best way to build a song from literally nothing to a produced and released track. I think one of my most memorable experiences with a producer was when I was working with Jon Levine in LA. We were just kind of, he wanted me to experiment with different ways to, I guess, like vocal performance wise, different ways to say a certain line in one of my songs. And I kind of found myself just taking it so far and then pulling it back and then so far again. And I was like laughing at myself as I was kind of doing these ridiculous performances, which we ended up like using some of them actually, because it sounds very cool when it's all put together and everything. So I was laughing at myself, and he said that, you know, sometimes people forget that making music is supposed to be really fun. Yeah. And that really stuck with me, because it's true, when you're in a studio, sometimes all these steps or how you like should do something can be a little bit overwhelming. And it's really fun it's really nice to just kind of take a step back and realize, you know, this is all about creativity, this is about collaboration. And at the end of the day, it's about having fun and creating something that you're really passionate about.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah.
Do you consider yourself a fearless person when it comes, I mean, creatively, like when you're in the studio or making yourself vulnerable, not just as an actor, but I mean, being on stage, speaking somebody else's lines is a little bit different than speaking your own or singing your own.
Mm-hmm. I feel like I'm getting more comfortable with being more vulnerable. I think that a lot of the songs that I've released so far, like there definitely is vulnerability to them, Moon Over Capri specifically. And I feel like I have a lot of songs that I've written recently which are maybe even more vulnerable, and it's going to take a little bit of confidence to really share that even more personal side to my songwriting. But I think kind of like I said, with having practice with collaboration, I feel like the more that I've done this and the more people that I've opened up to in the studio, the more comfortable I've kind of gotten with being vulnerable and just trying to get the best song out of it.
Are you taking songwriting classes at Berklee?
I've taken
counterpoint and theory and all the other good things.
Right. I've taken a musical theater songwriting course, which was really interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm also delving into that recently. And that was really interesting because I got to go back to my roots and listen to all my favorite theatrical songs and kind of analyze them in an academic way. Super interesting.
Right. And also studying sight singing and like a lot of technical things, your training.
I actually haven't done that at Berklee yet.
Okay.
But I did take a harmony class, which was really interesting. So it was about voice leading and secondary dominance and all that stuff. Yeah, so I've taken those courses. I also took a production course, which was really fun. It was an introductory music production course. Many possibilities.
Yeah, unlimited. So what are your days like? Are you at both campuses in one day, or are you certain days at Harvard, certain days at Berklee?
So I take a full course load at Harvard. I take like 4 courses. And then at Berklee, I take 1 to 2 courses a semester. And so I just kind of go there when I need to, but I'm mainly based on Harvard. But I'm also looking to get involved in a lot more extracurriculars and clubs at Berklee, because I feel like that's super valuable, meeting the people at Berklee and collaborating with them.
What kind of clubs are available?
I'm not sure yet. I'm still trying to figure that out.
I didn't even know they existed when I was there.
Yeah. I guess I mainly mean like performance opportunities and stuff.
But, extracurricular activities, with your peers is great. It's so important. I really believe, and I'm curious if you agree with me from your perspective, being you're 2 years into your college degree right now.
Yes, this is my 3rd year.
Yeah. That, what you learn in the classroom is invaluable, but what you learn outside of the classroom is equally valuable. You know, if you put yourself in the right situations with the right people. Yeah.
Right. The Berkeley community especially is
powerful.
Yeah, and it's kind of like infinite, honestly. I feel like a lot of the bands that I've performed with in the past have been Berkeley students or Berkeley alumni, and yeah, it's kind of just like this crazy network with so many talented people.
Yeah. Well, I want to get to my closing questions, and then I'll give you the opportunity for your closing thoughts. And I've got three questions that I ask each of my guests. The first one is, since this show is called Making It, what does making it mean to you both personally and professionally?
Oh, that's a tough question. Making it, I think that something that's really important to me is just continuing to write music that people are able to relate to, and possibly find comfort in knowing that somebody else is like feeling the same way. I feel like one of my favorite parts about being an artist is when people reach out to me on social media or after shows when I perform and say, you know, that song really hit me and it's like really impacted me. I wrote this one song called Worst of Times, which was about my friend who was having a lot of anxiety and also struggling with depression. And it was like, I'll be there for you in the worst of times. And after my performance, this lady came up to me and she was very emotional. And she was saying, you know, like, I've also struggled with that, and kind of hearing that put in song form. And I know you don't know me, but it does kind of feel like somebody is there for me in the worst of times. So I think that
Powerful.
That I consider making it. Yeah.
I would absolutely agree. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm so glad you got to experience that, and that person got to experience your song. We never know who we're going to touch.
Absolutely.
In our what we create as artists, but also just passing through the street. You know, you have no idea, like when you walk by somebody and just look and smile and look them in the eyes, that might be the one thing that kept that person from just hitting rock bottom. You just don't know. So, you know, I mean, it's so trite and it's a bumper sticker, but, you know, practice random acts of kindness is really true. It's really, really true. And that's a perfect example. You know, that was a random act of kindness. You know, you showed your soul through this experience of writing to help somebody that you knew. And there's a ripple effect that you can hope for, but you just don't know. But that can happen just with a simple smile too. You know, so beautiful answer. Can you share 3 tips for success that have driven your career or are now currently driving your career?
Well, my favorite, I'm gonna be you for a second, and I'm gonna pull out a quote here. One of my favorite quotes that I feel like I've kind of led my life by for many years is a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. And I feel like that has just really inspired me to take it one step at a time and not really necessarily get overwhelmed by just the huge number of possibilities, and taking it bit by bit, seeing what feels right to me in the moment. So I think just having that mindset would be my first advice. And then my second advice is kind of a little bit of what we touched on already about kind of going for it and reaching out to people, and just kind of having that confidence that if you take a shot, there's a chance that it might work out. And for the third one, just really finding something that you enjoy doing, because if you're not really passionate about the thing you're pursuing, it's going to be a little bit hard to pursue, at least, and have fun pursuing that. So finding something you love.
It's my last question before closing thoughts for you. And I've asked people who are in their 90s and I've asked people who are younger than you who have been on the show. But at this point of your life, whatever this point is right now, with everything that you know to be true, what would you tell your younger self?
Hmm.
And it could be 5-year-old Ava writing your first song, 10-year-old Ava Broadway debut. It could be a week ago.
Huh. I guess I would tell my younger self to just kind of keep all the possibilities open. Because I feel like when I was, well, I don't know, I guess I still do this a little bit sometimes, but just in terms of the course of life with high school and then college, there is this pressure to kind of figure out what you're doing right away and know what you're going to do with the rest of your life. But I guess what I would tell my younger self is that, you know, people always say life is so short, and that's true, but also life is really long, and it's really nice to just try a lot of different things, and you don't necessarily have to stick with one thing once you decide on it. So just kind of keep the possibilities open and don't be afraid of change.
Great. Anything else that you would like to add that you didn't get a chance to talk about today?
I don't think so. I think that kind of covers it. I loved that interview. It was so much fun.
Thank you. Yeah, it was fun for me too. we covered a lot. We covered more than I expected and more than I could have hoped for. So thanks for pivoting with me and being so open. I really appreciate you for doing that and for sharing your new music with me. And it's really a pleasure to speak with you. I'm excited for your continued journey and the things to come and the things that you're doing right now. And I want to thank all of our listeners for joining Ava and I right now. I know everybody's pretty busy and there's a lot of things. There are a lot of things you could be doing with your time. So I could safely say that we both appreciate you spending your time with us this past hour. And I just want to encourage everybody to stay safe and stay inspired. And we'll see everybody next week. So thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.